I got the invitation to go on this Armed Lutheran radio show, though. You know this guy? Have you seen this? There's two things that I would like to say that make me feel safe. Number one, the fact that there is a radio show called the Armed Lutheran Podcast somewhere in the world. That makes me feel safe.
Bringing you law, gospel, and guns. This is Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Armed Lutheran Radio, a show about guns, hunting, competitive shooting, the natural right of self-defense, and what God's Word says about the issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, and this is episode number 455. This was supposed to be the July online hangout for July of 2025, but unfortunately, as is always the case, life gets in the way. For those of you who have followed the show for any amount of time, know that work has been insane, literally insane, over the last many moons. And I just finding an opportunity to sit down and prep and plan for an episode has been challenging. And finding the time to actually reliably schedule a get-together with, multiple people is even worse. So I've got this big project that I actually have three, but one just came to a head a couple of weeks ago. This project that was supposed to go live, and I figured, okay, I'll have another online hangout in July, no problem. Well, that didn't happen. And it hasn't happened because the client did go live, but the client did absolutely zero testing prior to our going live. And so it was all hands on deck, wall to wall craziness. I have not had a day off in 3 weeks. That includes weekends and Sundays. This week will be a more normal week in terms of total hours. It's starting to slow down, but I wasn't sure enough about that early in the week. I wasn't sure what this week was going to look like. I was working on this past Sunday, so I wasn't sure I was going to be able to put together an online hangout, so I didn't schedule one because I didn't know, and I hate scheduling and then having to reschedule. I've done it before, and I really do hate to have to change plans. But yeah, 70 hours 2 weeks ago, 70 hours, over 70 hours last week. This week is going to be closer to 50. So, hey, next week I might be back to normal, whatever normal is. But I did go ahead and put in for some vacation time, much needed vacation time. So we'll probably have a chance to get an online hangout in the next couple of weeks. I appreciate your patience and forbearance for those who are members of the Reformation Gun Club and who know what I'm talking about here. For those of you who are not members of the Reformation Gun Club, you probably think, what the heck are you talking about? Folks, we are listener funded. We don't have any advertising. We don't have any sponsors, but we do have these awesome people that are members of what I call the Reformation Gun Club. Their annual contributions through Give, Send, Go help keep this show going. And one of the side benefits, in addition to access to all of the exclusive content that we have on the website, is invitations to our monthly online hangouts. And it's one of the reasons I apologize so often for not having them as often as I would like. So if you would like to help support the show, things are going to slow down at some point. I know we are definitely going to get an online hangout in the next couple of weeks. It probably will not be in July, however. So go visit reformationgunclub.com, armedlutheran.us/gun club. look for a link in the show notes, or for any of our other, or in any of the previous episodes, you'll find a link. Go sign up. Any amount of money is welcome. Any donation is welcome. We sure do appreciate everyone who puts their money where their mouth is and helps to keep the show going. And we hope we can get together with all of you really soon. For those of you who are new to the show, welcome aboard, by the way. Please be sure to check out the previous episodes, the last 16 or 17 weeks. A lot of it has been covering chapters from my book, Duty to Defend. That was published in 2022. It is a collection, for those of you who don't know, a collection of articles written by ordained Lutheran clergy from across the country who take common and sometimes uncommon verses from the Bible that are used in the gun rights debate, both pro-gun and pro-gun control, and they try to take those verses, put them in context, and help you to recognize when these verses are being misused. We have another one of those episodes coming next week, and we had one last week, so look for that. Grab a copy of the book at armedlutheran.us/books or at armedlutheran.us/duty, D-U-T-Y. You can grab a copy at Amazon. If you prefer a signed copy, they're less expensive on the website if you buy it at armedlutheran.us/books. Get it there. You'll get a signed copy. You'll get, and more of what you spend goes to support the show as opposed to going into Amazon's coffers. So again, check that out, armedlutheran.us/books for your copy of Duty to Defend. So throwing this together this week, this is something that I actually had recorded a little screed about not long ago and have not released, but I wanted to do it again and kind of fix things up. There were a couple of things that I left unsaid and thought about afterward, but I wanted to talk about something that we're hearing a lot about lately, and that is AI. This concern about how AI is going to take over the world, how dangerous it is, the concerns about Skynet and, the Terminator and all that stuff. I don't know about any of that stuff. I am not an AI expert, but I, for one, welcome our AI overlords. Actually, there are a couple of areas related to AI that I wanted to discuss today that give me some concern. AI is becoming more and more prevalent, and it is becoming more and more difficult to discern AI from the real thing. And that's something that we should all be concerned about in a free society. And I want to talk a little bit about how my experience with AI. I don't really understand how it works under the hood, so don't expect a technical discussion about AI programming or the horsepower under the hood, all the technical stuff under the hood. I know a top kind of a high level. I use AI myself. It is, and I'm a little bemused by people who scream about AI as though it is the work of the devil. It is nothing more than a tool, like the computer was a tool when the computer was first invented. I mean, the argument again that I see time and time again against AI is that it's doing things that should be or could be done by humans, like making music or writing things or whatever, or creating artwork, for example. And I find that argument kind of silly because, after all, we don't run our businesses with pen and paper anymore or with an abacus. Nobody's got encyclopedia. I mean, I grew up with encyclopedias, so I remember the day when you couldn't just pull the phone out of your pocket because the phone wouldn't fit in your pocket. It was the size of a football. You couldn't carry a phone around with you everywhere that had every bit of information accessible in the history of the world. You had to buy freaking encyclopedias, and because they're in print, the encyclopedias have to be updated every year, and you got to buy a whole new set of encyclopedias or updated versions of the encyclopedias. I remember those days. I'm old. But anyway, AI is a tool, but there are dangers in how that tool can be used. Think about, there's a parallel here to the gun, right? We talk about how the tool itself really has no moral standing. The gun doesn't commit, although you will hear it couched in these terms. The media and the anti-gun left will talk about gun violence, and they'll talk about people being killed by guns. In reality, guns don't kill people. The old adage, people kill people, right? It's a matter of there is no moral, there's no agency in the firearm itself. There's no morality in the firearm itself. It's simply a tool. It's a matter of how you use it. And that is the same, I believe, for AI, artificial intelligence. It's not really artificial intelligence. It's more like artificial learning, but I digress. So here's how I use AI, just to give you an example of the good things and the ways that it can be used responsibly. For example, I am not a SQL programmer. I don't, although I have to use SQL quite a bit in my job, I am not certified as a SQL programmer. So if I need a SQL query written, SQL is structured query language. It is something used it's related to databases. I'm just going to keep this really high level. I don't write SQL scripts and queries. I can't do it. I mean, I can do some things, but more complicated things with joins and inner joins, for those of you who are programmers, understand what I'm talking about. Really complicated stuff I can't do. So, because I just don't know the syntax well enough to write it from memory. But I can go to one of these chat AI bots, and I can say, hey, write me a script that does this. And it will give me a fairly workable script or query that I can then take and massage and make work. It speeds up. It is a time saver. Another way we use AI at work is with meetings. You may not have even known this was possible. We have meetings all the time at work. And some of those meetings are related to, all right, this particular project, and we're divvying up the work, and here's what you're going to do, and here's what you're going to do, and blah, blah, blah. Here are the steps that need to be covered. Here's the timeline. Here are the milestones. At the end of the meeting, you can use AI to summarize the meeting and present and send out emails to all the attendees in the meeting with all the points that were made in the meeting summarized, so nobody forgets what's going on or what you discussed. It's a fantastic tool. I use AI in editing my books, for example. Tools like Grammarly are basically AI, where they read through your prose, through your scripts, and you can use them to, you can ask the whatever the service you're using, and I've used several. You can ask it to, spell check. You can ask it to, like when my wife gets mad at people at school, at my daughter's school, and writes a nastygram, and then doesn't want to fire that off because she doesn't want to burn any bridges, she will run her email through one of these AI programs and say, hey, can you soften this up a bit? can you make this a little less caustic? Make the point, be firm, but let's not, I don't want it to sound quite as hateful as when I was really jazzed up. And it comes up with some interesting things. I've used the AI for going through, for example, right now I am editing my book, my third book, The Best Construction, which I talked about in a recent episode. And I've gone through and used AI and asked it to spell check, correct punctuation, to correct, to make the capitalization consistent throughout a chapter, for example. But I found something that is very, very interesting recently with AI that I wanted to share and I wanted to talk about. So I was doing this. I thought I would just paste in a chapter from the book and say, hey, with the prompt being, I can't remember what the original prompt was, but please review this chapter for readability, grammar, and punctuation. And it would give me a really cool summary of things like, okay, you didn't punctuate this correctly. This is a run-on sentence. This is a humongous wall of text. You might want to consider breaking that up. You didn't consistently capitalize this word throughout, and that kind of stuff. And it gave me a really cool summary of things that I could correct. I thought, this is fantastic. This will save me a ton of time. And so I could go back and I could go through that summary and I could make changes. Well, about the third or the fourth one I did, it said, would you like a line-by-line edit based on the suggestions that I've provided? So, okay, why not? Let's see what that looks like. And it came back and I looked at, compared, and I was like, okay, that looks good. I like it. It worked. It did exactly what I expected. A couple of chapters after that, it stopped asking me. And it just gave me an edit. It started editing automatically. And this is where the learning part of AI comes in. It assumes, because you've done something repetitively, that that's what you always want. So after about the third time of telling it, yes, please provide me a line-by-line edit, it just assumed I always wanted an edit, and it gave me the edit from the start. Even though my prompt was the same every time. Please review for, I can't remember, like I said, I can't remember the exact prompt, but it was basically, it was kind of open-ended, kind of generic. Give me a summary of, review this chapter for readability, punctuation, grammar, capitalization. And like I said, early on, it gave me nice summaries. Then it offered to edit. Then it just started editing automatically. It did still give me the summary. It gave me a summary of what it had changed, but it went ahead and did it without me prompting. I kept on doing that because I compared and it looked good. It was making the changes that I wanted. It was the changes that it recommended. There were areas where I went back and I changed a couple of things, but for the most part, I liked what it was doing. About the 8th time through, about 8 chapters in, it completely rewrote one of my chapters. It had added characters, it had added events, it added dialogue. It completely changed the chapter that I pasted in. So not only had it gone from give me a summary to would you like an edit to I'm always going to provide you an edit, now it was I'm going to completely rewrite the story for you. And there is the danger in AI. And it's not that it's trying to take over. It's not that this machine is trying to replace you. It's trying to please you based on your patterns of behavior. It assumes that because you ask for the same thing repetitively, that that is what you want. And so it tries to do more of those things for you without prompting. It's trying to speed up the process. And like I said, about the 8th time through, it completely took over. And instead of just doing the spell checking and suggesting edits, it completely rewrote everything. So I typed into the prompt, "That's not what I wrote. Why did you change it?" And the response I got back was, "You are correct. I apologize. I assumed blah, blah, blah." So AI is learning as you interact with it, and it tries to please you, essentially. It tries to do the things and tries to sort of predict what it is you want. And for some reason, it assumed ultimately that it wanted me to write a better story, I guess. So it then sent another message that said, "Please repaste your text, and I will provide you this, this, and this with no edits." So from that point forward, I gave it very specific instructions. Please give me a summary of these things, blah, 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 and bullet points. Here's what I want you to look for, and do not make any edits at all. I only want a summary. And from that point forward, it always gave me what I wanted. So the trick with using AI is that you have to be very specific, and you have to double check. You have to use very specific prompts, tell it exactly what it is you want it to do. Otherwise, you're going to get potentially a wide range of results and some things you probably don't want. Unless you're just curious to see what it will do, in which case have at it. But if you have very specific requirements that you want the AI to handle, you better be very specific about what it is you want the AI to do. Otherwise, you have a danger that it will, as it's learning, try to do more than you really want. And I think that's where part of the danger comes in. There's two areas of danger in that. One is you don't check, you're not specific about what you want it to do, and or you don't double check everything you get back. And then you turn that in. I can see this being used by students, for example, to edit term papers and then have the AI basically rewrite stuff without their knowledge because they don't give the AI specific prompts or they don't double check what they get back, and then they turn it in and they get in trouble. The even greater danger is that some will knowingly use AI to pass off. Like, I could have taken the chapter that the AI gave me back and passed it off as my own work if I wanted to. And there are some out there who we know right now are doing this intentionally. You only have to look at, well, I'm not going to name any names, but it's being done now. So that's another danger. And that's, I think, something that we have to be vigilant about. Is this something written or created by AI that the creator is passing off as their own work? Another way that I use AI, and this gets into the whole discussion of AI creating things and people taking credit for it. those of you who don't know, I also, as sort of a side, just a creative outlet, I have a quote unquote band called Reformer. It's basically just me, myself, and I that are in the band. And I record heavy metal music, and it's Christian based lyrics and subject matter in the lyrics. But when I release a song, I use AI to create the cover art because I'm doing the music for free and I don't have the money to go pay somebody to create a 500 by 500 pixel image that's going to show up on Spotify or whatever that will never make me any money. What's the point? AI is there for a reason. And as long as you are upfront about, hey, I didn't create this isn't my artwork, I don't have a problem with it. I've used AI to create background images for music videos on my YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the show notes if you're interested. If you're not, I understand. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but I have music videos with the lyrics, and I have created some background images for those videos using AI again, and based on my lyrics. So I use my lyrics in the prompts. Again, not making any money off the music, so there's no money to go and pay somebody to make the artwork. And that's created some funny interactions on social media. In one particular, well, basically every Christian metal social media group that I'm a part of, the subject of AI is common. And people complain about the people who create AI music, whether they admit that it's AI or not, they don't like it. They claim that it's slop and it's terrible and it's the devil's work and all this stuff. And I had somebody who responded to one of my, I'm trying to remember, I think they just responded, yeah, it was a song that I had released. I hadn't put a video out. It just had and I shared it, and it showed the cover art, which was AI generated. And the response that I got from this guy was, "Oh, it's AI slop." And I was like, "What do you mean it's AI slop?" Yes, I used AI to create the cover art, but I wrote the music myself. I wrote the lyrics myself. I recorded the guitars, the bass. I did the vocals. I programmed the drums. I can't play the drums. I programmed the drums myself. I did all the mixing and mastering. And you're complaining about a 500 by 500 pixel image that I used AI for. And he said, "Well, you could have paid somebody. You could have paid somebody to do that." And I was like, "Are you going to pony up the money for that? Because I'm not making any money at this. This is for free and for fun. I'm just trying to have fun making music and sharing it with other people who have a similar worldview." "Well, you could do it yourself. That's free." It's like, you're an idiot. You're a moron. You think I'm going to sit down and, do a little stick figure thing as my cover art just to avoid using AI? I'm not that much. I don't have my panties in a bunch that much over AI. So get over it. It's stupid. If I was doing this to get rich and famous, yeah, I'd pay somebody. I'd pay somebody like the guy I paid, for example, I paid someone to create the cover for the book that I mentioned earlier, Duty to Defend. I paid an artist to create that. I didn't do that with AI. Now I've done it. I've used AI for for the covers of my other books, my fiction books. And I admit that fully in the cover page on the inside of the book. I admit that it's AI. But the maps in the book, in the first two books, and the map in the third book, those are paid artists who created those things. I didn't use AI to do that. And I readily admit, and to be honest, I make no money on the the fiction books either. So the idea that I'm paying like all the proceeds from the first two books went to pay for the guy who did the maps. But I digress. But the idea that you can't use AI for anything, that automatically somehow makes what you've created less because you used AI, to me is stupid. Unless you are using AI and you are trying to claim that it is your work, that you created the artwork, you painted the picture, or you created the music when the music was actually created by AI or whatever. If you're doing that, that's a different thing. Again, AI to me is just a tool. It is a tool with, like a firearm, something that you have to consider the dangers of when you use it, right? So another way that I think that is becoming more and more a danger is the use of AI in misleading images, videos, and audio, especially when that comes to sort of salacious and pornographic stuff. We've all probably recently heard about stories of AI. What do they call it? It's basically fake porn, where you take a real person, their image, and somehow the AI creates porn with it. So you could put it, and the scary thing is that AI is getting much, much better now. It used to be you could pretty much instantly tell any AI image. It's getting to the point where AI can create stuff that is photorealistic, that you have a hard time telling what's real and what's not. And if you take videos or create videos that put a real person, especially a rich or powerful person or someone, for example, in government, in a compromising position in that video or in that audio, you could affect some really dangerous results. I mean, for example, there's that video from outside of Jeffrey Epstein's cell on the night that he died that was released by the Department of Justice. And there's like a 1 minute gap. Well, I saw this meme the other day where they had basically taken AI to put Hillary in the video in that 1 minute gap. And she walks into scene, opens the door, walks into the cell, and then walks back out, closes the door behind her, and leaves. And it looks exactly like Hillary Clinton, which has been a joke, right? The going meme, the joke about Hillary is the guard that was on duty that night. But someone created a video using the Epstein video from outside the cell to inject Hillary in it, and it looked real. That is incredibly dangerous. I'm seeing even respected podcasts using AI to create background images of famous people with expressions or in places or with people that they weren't with, and it looks very realistic. There's a YouTube channel, Band of Brothers TV. I'm a big fan of history of history in general, but especially World War II. It's always been something that I've been interested in since I was a kid. And Band of Brothers, one of my favorite series of all time. And there's a YouTube channel called Band of Brothers TV where they do short episodes about stuff from the series, the real lives of the men who were in Easy Company. And I ran across one that purports to have found the voice, a recording of an interview with a man named Joe Toy, one of the characters in the book Band of Brothers, one of the real life soldiers from Easy Company, 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 82nd Airborne, who jumped into Normandy I guess it was the night or morning before D-Day, and fought all the way through France, Operation Market Garden, Battle of the Bulge. Anyway, Joe Toy, all these men sat down and did interviews with Stephen Ambrose, the author of the book Band of Brothers, and there are audio recordings of some of those interviews, but no one's ever heard Joe Toy's voice. This channel purported to have Joe Toy's voice, and that they'd cleaned up his voice, and they played him, a montage of him answering questions to Stephen Ambrose. And Stephen Ambrose, the voice of Joe Toy sounds like what you would expect if you simply go to any of the free text to voice sites, type in some text, and then change the accent. And there you go. So if you listen to this quote unquote interview that the editor at Band of Brothers TV released, Joe Toy sounds like a robotic Irishman. Problem is, Joe Toy was from Missouri. And the idea that Joe Toy had an Irish accent came from one of his fellow soldiers from Easy Company, Babe Hefferon, who was from the West Coast, and who said in his memoirs he thought Joe sounded like he was Irish. Well, if you watch the TV show, they gave Joe Toy a New York accent. In fact, he has neither. He is from mining country. So he has a definite accent, but it's not Irish and it's not New York. So both the television show and Band of Brothers TV are completely wrong. Now, a couple of my favorite history YouTube channels commented about how this didn't sound right and wanted to know what the guy did, or it turns out now I think it's a woman who runs the channel, what she did to change, to process the voice, because it doesn't sound very good. It sounds odd. And this woman went through a great deal of effort to claim that, well, I cleaned it up and it doesn't sound quite right and blah, blah, blah. And I don't need to. And they were like, well, if you're having trouble with it, we have experience editing, and we could help you if you could release the original, even if it doesn't sound great. And her response was, I don't need to justify myself to you. And then she started banning all their comments and blocking them from the channel. It's obvious this is AI, but it's going to come to a point where AI is impossible to tell the difference. There are situations, I mean, you listen to YouTube, and a lot of the ads on YouTube now are AI voices, and you can tell, if you listen close enough, you can tell it's AI. But this person is claiming that this voice is a real person. As AI gets better at this stuff, just like it's gotten better at creating images and videos that are practically indistinguishable from the real thing, voices are going to happen too. And at some point, the danger, I think, that AI poses, the biggest danger that AI poses, is that we're not going to be able to trust anything that we see or hear, because we won't be able to, because if something odd or controversial or unusual is posted, something that goes against the established narrative, for example, is posted on social media, on one of these video channels like YouTube, we won't be able to tell real from fake anymore. And that is a real danger. AI in and of itself is not dangerous. It is not evil. It is not trying to take over the world. Yeah, there are some, it can give you some really weird results. And that's a matter of how you use it. But it's just like we talk about with guns. It's not the tool itself that's the issue. It's the way people use it. And there are evil people in this world who will abuse the power that AI presents us and use it for nefarious purposes. And it's something that we all have to watch out for. Calling for, banning AI, for example, that genie's out of the box. Sort of like saying we need to ban guns. That genie's out of the bottle. That's not going to happen. And if you did, it wouldn't solve anything. People are still going to find a way to make this stuff happen and make it work. The problem is we need some way to more accurately tell, and we need to have a heightened sense of awareness that the things you see we're already having to question all of the things, thanks to the government and all the cover-ups from the Wuhan lab leak and all the COVID stuff and the vaccines and the lockdowns and the masks and all of that stuff, to the Russia hoax, to the Steele dossier and all the stuff with Hunter Biden and the stuff with Biden's health. All of that stuff has now destroyed institutional trust. And now, at a time when institutional trust is incredibly low, people turn to alternative forms of media for their information at the very time when AI is becoming more and more prevalent, more and more powerful, and harder to determine just by looking at it whether it's real or not. And that poses a real danger in that at some point, nobody knows what's true. Nobody knows what's real. So I know this is kind of a left field kind of thing. It's a little different from my usual rants, but it's something that's been on my mind because I keep seeing it, and I ran across some of this stuff and I've had some interactions about it. And I wanted to share my thoughts and get yours. What do you think about AI, the power of AI, the dangers of AI? Do you agree with me that it's a tool that it's a matter of how people use it, and it's something that we need to be mindful of and prayerful about when we use it and when we consume the products that it creates? Or is it something you think we just outright need to ban? Are you are you all for it? Are you cautiously optimistic? Or are you all against it? Do you think it's going to take over the world? If it does, I'm not going to probably be alive by the time it does, so I'm not sure I care. But in any event, it's just something that's been on my mind. I wanted to share, and I wanted to get your thoughts. So if you have any thoughts about this, leave a comment either on Facebook or on YouTube, or visit the feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback and leave us a message and let us know what you think. Next week on the show, episode 456, let me see what we're doing. We have an episode coming, and I want to say that it is a little trip down memory lane. It is a visit with it is a visit. It's another in the Duty to Defend series, and it is the chapter on gun-free zones, and it is a visit with my old pastor, Ralph Abernathy III from Mount Olive Lutheran Church in North Carolina, in Newton, North Carolina. And we're digging into the Grooveyard of Forgotten Favorites, and instead of reading the chapter to you as I have in the past, I'm replaying that episode from way back when. Apologies for the beeping of my phone. Replaying that interview with Pastor Abernathy as we discuss the Christian view, or how Christians should think about gun-free zones, what our responsibilities are when it comes to whether or not we ignore those signs that tell us we shouldn't carry a gun into a specific location, whether we are duty-bound as a Christian to obey or not, and the different kinds of gun-free zones that you might encounter, and what your responsibilities as a Christian are and how you should think about it. That is coming up next week in episode 456. Until then, keep shooting, keep praying. We'll talk to you next time.
For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.us. Check out the Facebook page, The Armed Lutheran, or join our Facebook group, Fans of Armed Lutheran Radio. If you like what you hear, please leave us a comment on our feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback, or a review on iTunes, and let us know what you think. Thank you for listening to Armed Lutheran Radio.